Hello everyone, and welcome back to kind of a different video from myself. One that's definitely more opinionated. But seeing as Omniman has only just released, I thought that it would be the perfect opportunity to sit down and talk with you all about my own personal thoughts and feelings regarding the Kombat Pack, its contents, and what precedents do I think Omniman kinda sets forth regarding DLC characters for this game. So, first things first, I will be solely focusing on the fully playable characters, as they are essentially the main selling point of it. So starting off, let's touch on the guest characters, as I have a lot to say about them, and they do seem to be the determining factor for many MK fans, as it draws in a lot of the casual market, and I definitely feel like the swerve and change to that of more adult-themed heroes to be a wise one from a marketing standpoint. As post-Endgame, Marvel has kinda struggled to find its feet again, but the benefit of it is that there's way more diversity in the genre, especially with its audience maturing, allowing shows like Invincible, The Boys, and Peacemaker to thrive. My only real big criticism right now is actually having two very similar Superman-esque archetypes in the same pack. Whilst, yes, they are very different, both lore and power-wise, conceptually, it can't be denied that they both originate from the same point. Had these two been spread out across maybe 2 DLC packs, it wouldn't be quite so on the nose, but I'm squarely gonna place the blame here on Amazon's shoulders, as they did want Omniman to release alongside Season 2 of Invincible. I won't dive too deep into the whole Superman archetype thing, as I find it to be a very basic surface level analysis of these two characters, that really at this point has been done to death. So with that said, let's actually talk about Omniman. And let's be real here, I've been singing my praises about this character's inclusion for a while now. I've made it no secret, I'm a fan, and I firmly stand by his inclusion in the Kombat Pack, as he's not too out there for the world of MK, considering that we have now fought cosmic level deities, and a literal living paradox. But it's ultimately the gameplay that will keep you around. And so, I'm very pleased to say that he really does feel unique amongst the roster, playing different to everyone else, and having enough fun references to the shows and the comics that it feels very authentic to the character. And it also helps that he's voiced by J.K. Simmons. Also, unbeknownst to many of you, as I don't believe it has been publicly disclosed, but pretty much all of his dialogue and arcade ladder endings are actually written by series creator Robert Kirkman. So again, it really does have that authentic Invincible feel, making Omniman's inclusion really feel like it matters here. Now moving on, we do have Homelander from The Boys. And whilst I'm not a big fan of this character, especially that source material, dear lord, he's still a welcomed inclusion, as I do really like the show, arguably being one of the biggest ones to usher in this age of more adult-oriented superhero media. But currently, my biggest worry is the Anthony Starr situation. For those unaware, unlike Omniman and Peacemaker, who have been confirmed to be played by their respective actors, Starr has not been confirmed. In fact, on Instagram just recently, he has seemingly denied the role. Now, this might be the MK fan in me, with a hint of copium and PTSD from Terminator.
What did Cage teach you to call me?
An ugly motherfucker.
But I sincerely hope that this is an NDA situation, especially seeing as they did actively go out of their way to get his likeness for the character. This very well could be the ramifications of the actor strike. But also, please do keep in mind, we still have about 6 to 7 months up until his release. It would be pretty disappointing if we don't get him involved. In terms of gameplay and interaction, I'm not really expecting too much from him here, as for the most part, he is largely untrained. mostly relying on his incredible super strength to carry him in battle. Thus, I do strongly believe that his eye lasers will probably be the main center focus of his core gameplay. So I'm genuinely very interested to see just how much of this is intertwined to his gameplay. Regarding intros, this is something I'm very interested in seeing. Although I'm still hoping for Star's portrayal, I'm very excited to see his interactions with Omniman, especially if there's some Easter eggs or callbacks to that of Death Battle, as well as see him interact with other smarmy characters like Johnny, Lao, Shang, and even Shao. Ones that could prey on that insecurity of his and force him to combust. There's a lot that can be done here, so I'm just interested to see how much of the show is reflected in the character. Fingers crossed that they could get Eric Kripke involved in some way, shape, or form. Now, our final guest character is definitely one I must kind of admit I was a bit taken back by, but I am pleased to see him here, and that's Peacemaker. Again, I'm a massive fan of the show, so naturally, I am a bit biased. But honestly, the idea of John Cena being in a Mortal Kombat game might be one of the wildest things I've said all year. Like, never in my lifetime did I ever expect this to be a thing. And I really do feel like one of the best parts of Peacemaker is actually going to be his interactions. Because if you're familiar with the show, and I do recommend it if you're a fan of James Gunn's humor, this man is like the prime example of an Xbox 360 like Call of Duty player just shit talking down the microphone. It's barbaric, but I really do love it.
Peace out, motherfucker.
But from a gameplay perspective, this is where things could get really interesting. But one thing I'm hoping they don't lean into is him as a zoner. Yes, he has a vast array and arsenal of projectile-based weapons. But for God's sake, he's being played by John Cena, a wrestler. This would be a great opportunity to tie in those roots of the actor to that of the character. And currently on the game's base roster, there's not really that many grapplers as is. Thus, he could be a great refreshing addition. And this is not even touching on the ability of him probably turning invisible, which I'm calling it now. I guarantee you they're gonna do. Now, with the guest characters out the way, let's actually touch on the returning legacy characters with Quan Chi, Ermac, and Takeda. I'm actually pretty damn content with these returning characters. Especially Takeda, a character that I really do think was a shining highlight of the Reboot trilogy. Whilst I would say they played it safe with the inclusion of Ermac and Quan Chi, I'm pretty happy that they were used in the game's base story to not make their sudden inclusion feel like it kinda comes out of nowhere. So with that said, what are my thoughts on Quan Chi? Well, honestly, it's a pretty welcomed return in my opinion. I'm not like a super hardcore fan of Quan Chi, but he was a welcomed addition to the game's story mode, especially having come back in such a big way after his demise in Mortal Kombat X. So I do hope that fans are pleased by his return. And in terms of sheer look and character design, I really do feel like they hit the nail on the head here, perfectly capturing the essence of Quan Chi's design with his pale complexion, gothic design, and enchanting tattoos. In terms of gameplay, I'm pretty intrigued to see how he's gonna function, because as of making this video, on the PC version of MK1, there is a mod where you can play as him, but it's a little bit of a mishmash of moves that have been cobbled together from Mortal Kombat 11. Kind of like Sector and Cyrax with the Triborg moveset. I want to see what legacy moves return, as well as what new ones will be added to his toolkit, as it has been a while since he was playable. Along with this, I can only imagine the amount of weight that will sit behind his dialogue in this game, as his own background and history has only been briefly touched on within the main story, as well as his character bio. so fingers crossed that they expand his lore and character in a really huge and big way, seeing as the Netherrealm was largely absent from this game, and the disappearance of Shinnok is most definitely felt. So the future of Quan Chi looks very promising. Now we are arguably onto the most controversial character of the pack, Ermac. I got a lot of weird mixed feelings about this one, because whilst I did like how they utilized him in the story, paying off a literal decade of build-up with Jared sealed inside him, why on earth have they decided to lean into the whole dilapidated zombie mummy look? It's always been the weakest visual design of the character, so to me, this was a very strange pick. Whilst, yeah, Ermac has definitely strayed away from being just the Red Ninja, he's always retained that sense of identity to his design. I mean, look at Reptile, right? I don't think what helps this situation is his absolutely stellar unused design in Mortal Kombat 11, as it blended ideas, elements, and concepts of his original design, whilst adding a modern flair to it. Now, yeah, I know there will be cosmetics, an alternative design from what we see here, but the on-surface value is essentially the selling point for this character. So visually, I'm just not convinced there. In terms of gameplay, I'm not too sure what to expect from him here, as he kind of gets the Quan Chi gameplay treatment here, but again, like him, I want to see how much is redesigned and repackaged for the modern era, as a character that utilizes telekinesis is only kind of limited by the creative minds behind it. But from what we've seen of Omniman so far, I think it's definitely in safe hands. Now touching on verbal exchanges here, I'm heavily invested in seeing what direction they steer towards, because how much of it is Jared and how much of it is Ermac? Are there any other souls and characters that lay dormant beneath the surface? Plus, with Jared there, they could create some interesting world building that could lay the foundation to how Outworld began and what exactly happened to Onaga, as he's been foreshadowed as one of the next big threats. Now moving on, we do have our final character here, Takeda Takahashi, a character I've been dying to see return. And honestly, I can't wait to play him. Whilst I was most definitely sad with his exclusion in 11, considering how combo-centric he was in X, I'm kind of glad he didn't make it into 11, as it was much more tame and slow in comparison. But in this game, I can definitely see him thriving. So narratively, it was great to see him come back, even if he was gutted like a trout. But his inclusion did get a nice pop out of me. And narratively, I'm just interested to see how does he fit into that of the present. Because is there another time skip? Or did Kenshi have him a long time ago? What is his relation to the blind swordsman in this era? Like, there's a lot that could go on here, and I'm just super excited to see what he brings to the table. My only current criticism towards him is that his design is a little bit iffy. It's definitely a nitpick, mind you, and I love the headpiece and the mask, but the suit itself feels a tad bit over-designed. It kinda looks like a Ferrari got slapped on his chest here. It might simply just be the angle, but it does definitely look a bit funky. Gameplay wise, out of everyone else on the Kombat Pack, this is the character I'm the most interested in seeing, because how much of his toolkit does he retain from MKX? Because from what we've seen with Tremor, is that they're perfectly fine with bringing in ideas from the past, and blending together what made variation so special for MKX. So I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table. But overall, my thoughts on the Kombat Pack are pretty positive for the most part. I like the guest characters, definitely would have preferred Omniman and Homelander to have been spread out, and I definitely think they played it a little bit safe on the MK side of things, but it is still great to have them here. So, with that said, what are your current thoughts on the Kombat Pack? And are you happy with the characters we have here? Who would you yourself like to see in the future? Please do comments down below. But for now everyone, as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. I'll catch you all soon.